Shawshank Redemption, film directed by Frank Darabont and based on Stephen King's novella Rita. And Shawshank Redemption is often regarded as one of the greatest movies ever made. Released in 1994, the film stars Tim Robbins as Andy Dufresne, a banker wrongly convicted of murder, and Morgan Freeman as Ellis Red Redding, a lifer at Shawshank Prison. The movie explores themes of hope, friendship, and the human spirit's resilience as Andy spends decades trying to escape Shawshank while forging an unlikely bond with Red. The movie opens in 1947 with Andy Dufresne, a quiet and unassuming banker, is sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences for the murders of his wife, Linda, and her lover in the small town of Rockport, Maine. The evidence against him seems damning. His wife's blood was found on his clothes, and he had a motive. He was having marital problems. Andy's calm demeanor during the trial and his refusal to confess causes doubt about his guilt, but the jury convicts him anyway. As Andy is taken to Shawshank State Penitentiary, the camera zooms in on his face, revealing the fear and confusion of a man who believes he is innocent, but is powerless to change his fate. As he's sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences at Shawshank State Penitentiary, Andy's calm, almost detached demeanor doesn't quite match the brutal reality of the prison. Picture a man in a shark tank, but instead of panicking, he's just there thinking about his golf swing. When Andy first enters Shawshank, he is completely out of his element. Shawshank is not your typical prison. It's more like a rough, overcrowded society with its own set of rules, dominated by a corrupt warden, sadistic guards, and an incredibly strict set of social hierarchies. It's like the Wild West, but with less cowboys and more menacing glances. The first person Andy meets in Shawshank is Ellis Red Redding, a lifer played by Morgan Freeman, who runs the prison's black market. Red has been in Shawshank long enough to know everyone's dirty secrets and can get his hands on anything, from cigarettes to more unusual items like a rock hammer. And you're probably thinking, what's a rock hammer going to do in prison? Well, it's a tool that plays a huge role in Andy's plan, but we'll get to that later. Red sees something different in Andy. Andy's polite, quiet nature and financial background immediately stand out to Red, who recognizes that Andy is not like the other prisoners. Red, being a man who's seen it all, takes a liking to him. But Andy's got no street smarts. If Shawshank were a game of poker, Andy would be the guy holding the worst hand and not bluffing. He doesn't even know how to play the game yet. Now let's talk about Andy's business dealings. He may be a wrongfully convicted man, but he's also a banker. And Andy doesn't waste his talents. Andy's real talents come into play when he offers his services to the prison guards. He uses his skills as a banker to help the corrupt warden and the guards with money laundering and tax evasion schemes. Andy becomes a trusted advisor for Warden Norton, who exploits Andy's knowledge of finance for his own personal gain. Andy's intelligence, especially his ability to manipulate the prison's financial dealings, brings him a degree of comfort in Shawshank that most other inmates don't get. The warden allows Andy to continue his banking work, and Andy even helps the prison guards with their finances, creating a network of trust between him and the prison officials. At first, this is just a chance for Andy to survive in Shawshank, but soon it turns into something more lucrative. When the corrupt Captain Hadley, who's about as pleasant as a boil on your backside, inherits a fortune, Andy steps in to help him navigate the inheritance tax. Money's tight, but the IRS doesn't mess around. Andy says with that "I've got this" expression on his face. The warden quickly takes notice, and suddenly Andy is on the payroll. Andy isn't just doing the books now, he's practically running Shawshank's finances, like his own private banking empire. We're talking money laundering and other shady dealings. It's like Andy opened a full-blown tax office in prison. But the customer service isn't exactly friendly, despite the apparent perks. Andy's life inside Shawshank is still oppressive. He is subjected to constant harassment from the cruel and corrupt Captain Byron Hadley, the head guard, who beats him after Andy helps him avoid a financial crisis involving an inheritance. Yet Andy doesn't break. He continues to focus on his long-term goal, finding a way out. This part of the movie is where Andy starts gaining power and influence, and the rest of the prison population starts to notice. The prisoners begin calling Andy the man who can do anything. I kind of like the Swiss Army knife of Shawshank, except instead of multi-tools, he's got a rock hammer and some knowledge of accounting. He even helps the prison guards with their financial issues. You'd think Andy was the prison's personal financial advisor at this point. He's literally balancing the books for the whole prison, which, let's be honest, is both impressive and a little terrifying. As much as Andy is doing good work, it's hard to ignore the fact that the whole place is a mess of corruption and abuse. But Andy keeps his focus. He's playing a long game. As the years roll on, Andy and Red's friendship deepens. Red, a lifer who has been in Shawshank for decades, serves as the narrator of the story, offering insight into prison life and Andy's gradual transformation. Red sees Andy as a man who refuses to be broken by the system and becomes increasingly fascinated by his quiet resilience. One of the most moving parts of the film is when Andy begins to share his dreams with Red. He tells Red about his hopes of one day leaving Shawshank and living in a peaceful town by the ocean, running a small hotel. It's a dream that seems impossible, but Andy holds on to it as a way to keep his sanity. In an effort to keep the inmates' spirits up, Andy pulls off an incredible feat. He plays opera music over the prison's loudspeakers. In a moment of rare freedom and transcendence, the inmates experience the beauty of music, a brief escape from their harsh realities. This act, which has no direct benefit to Andy, shows the depth of his humanity and his ability to bring light to others. Even in the darkest place on earth, Andy continues to work on his dream of escape. But it's not just about the freedom from Shawshank. Andy wants something more. He wants to be remembered. When Andy starts educating other prisoners, giving them a chance to better themselves, it's clear that he's not just trying to survive. He's trying to leave behind something meaningful. Over time, Andy's financial services also lead him to become a key player in the prison's operations. He creates a financial library for the inmates, where they can educate themselves, and he earns the respect of even the most hardened criminals. But not everyone in Shawshank is pleased with Andy's presence. The warden, despite benefiting from Andy's work, grows paranoid that Andy might one day expose his criminal activities. Now let's talk about Tommy, the young and naive inmate, who becomes Andy's closest ally in Shawshank. Tommy's a guy who just wants to do his time, but when he confesses that he knows who really killed Andy's wife and her lover, Andy thinks this is his golden ticket out of Shawshank. Tommy's confession is the key to Andy's freedom, but the warden, terrified that Andy might expose him, has Tommy killed before he can testify. The sheer cruelty of the warden and his desperation to keep Andy quiet becomes painfully evident. The system is broken, Andy mutters, his voice tinged with frustration. This is the moment when Andy realizes that Shawshank isn't just a prison, it's a cage for the soul. This betrayal hits Andy hard, but he doesn't lose his will to escape. Even with Tommy's death, Andy doesn't give up. Instead, he starts working on his secret plan. He's been digging a tunnel for 19 years with a tiny rock hammer. The thought of someone carving their escape slowly over decades is mind-boggling. It's like a prison version of Groundhog Day, only instead of repeating the same day, Andy repeats the same motions in his cell, all with one goal in mind: freedom. For almost 2 decades, Andy's been chipping away at the walls. Literally and figuratively, he uses the posters of actresses like Raquel Welch to hide the hole, which is both clever and absurd. It's almost like Andy had a side gig as a collector of classic posters. What's your favorite prison decoration? Oh, Raquel Welch in 1 million years BC. And I'm still digging. Finally, the moment of Andy's escape arrives. He climbs through the sewage system, not exactly the dream exit we all picture, and emerges into the rain-soaked night. It's a moment of pure exhilaration, where the rain doesn't feel like a burden. It's freedom washing over him. The iconic scene where Andy, covered in filth, spreads his arms wide, as if embracing the night, is one of the most cinematic moments in film history. I guess it comes down to a simple choice. Really, he says, get busy living or get busy dying. Red, meanwhile, has been granted parole after serving 40 years. The outside world is unrecognizable to him. It's a cruel joke that after so many years, Red, too, must now face the terrifying concept of freedom. Red's adjustment to life outside. Shawshank is like watching a man try to re-enter the world with a broken GPS. I'm an institutional man. He says, I can't go back to the world. Red's story might just be the most heartbreaking one of all. He's free, but he doesn't know how to be. But then, in the most heartwarming moment of the entire film, Red fulfills his promise to Andy. He finds the hidden letter and money beneath the rock, and he makes the long symbolic journey to Zihuatanejo. It's like someone finding the last piece of a jigsaw puzzle after decades of searching. The final scene, where Andy and Red reunite on the beach in Mexico, is the culmination of everything Shawshank represents. Friendship, hope, redemption. It's everything that was lost in Shawshank, but found again in the most unexpected of places. You can't live for nothing, Red says. A man who has seen both the worst and the best of human nature. And in the end, Shawshank Redemption proves that the best things in life, hope, friendship, freedom, are worth fighting for, no matter how long it takes. The Shawshank Redemption is a masterpiece that explores themes of injustice, resilience, hope, and friendship. Andy Dufresne's journey from a wrongfully convicted man to a symbol of perseverance and redemption resonates with viewers on a deeply emotional level. The film teaches us that even in the most hopeless of circumstances, the human spirit can find a way to endure and thrive. Andy's escape is not just from Shawshank, but from the chains of despair that bind all of us. The friendship between Andy and Red serves as a reminder that no one is truly alone, even in the darkest places. Shawshank Redemption is not just about the prison walls that confine its characters, but about the mental and emotional walls that we all build around ourselves. Through Andy's escape, we are reminded that the greatest freedom we can achieve is not just physical escape, but freedom from the doubts and fears that imprison our minds.